Hi, everyone. I'm so excited today. We have Christine Jobe with us from Flourish in the Foreign. And I could not be more excited to have you on today's episode as our guest as we talk about the concepts that are near and dear to both of our hearts as Black women who are pursuing lives of joy. And I'm just excited to get into this. So, as we always start by saying, like, I want you to describe who you are. I'm going to have already talked about that. So we've already covered it, but I want to hear from you. Who is Christine Jobe? Where are you from right now? And a little bit about yourself.
Goodness, who is Christine Job? Well, I am a podcaster, I'm a business strategist, a writer, I'm a daughter and a sister. Definitely heavy on the big sister. I feel like I was born to be a big sister and I
Nice.
like encompass that role really well. I'm originally from Atlanta. And so I'm Black American, although my father is from Trinidad, so I'm also Caribbean. And I'm currently based in Valencia, Spain. I've lived in Spain for the past 6 years. And so when I think about who I am, I do have almost like these two parts of me, this Christine from the US and this Christine that lives in Spain. And I'm not sure if they've been fully integrated, to be honest. I think Christine that lives in Spain lives a very soft life normally, really playful life, but because I work with US based clients and I'm still very much based in the US. Um, I'm still very, you know, go, 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 ambitious person. I don't know if I answered that question, but that's a good one to start with because I'm like, who am I?
I start with the softballs right out the gate. Tell us who you are. What is your life's dream? What is the meaning of life, Christine? The easy ones. But I think you did answer the question, and it does I think, encapsulate you. Christine and I met through like all on the interwebs, through this kind of group about helping Black women. I feel it was like Black women entrepreneurs or something like that. And we had this immediate connection. I remember we were like on a meeting with like this mastermind, and I remember I was just like, "Oh, Christine lives in Spain, and I had just come back from living in Europe for like the last 5 years." And I was just like tapping away on like a chat to be like, we need to be friends. We need to absolutely connect because you have the life that I want to return to and a life that I've lived. And there's something about folks who live internationally, and particularly Black women who've lived internationally, that there's just this camaraderie and this connection of like, you get it. And the way you talked about living abroad, you get it. And so it was like, yeah, I need to connect with this woman. This woman needs to be my friend. And it kind of went from there. It's been years now, but it went from there. And then I also agree with the piece about when I lived overseas, there were two parts of me for sure. Like there was the Kelley in Italy and England, who was much more chill. By like 4:30, work done at 4:30. By 5, I'm in the piazza having my spritz, just reading a book, right? Every day. And then there was corporate Kelley that was like, nah, girl, you got a side hustle, and your side hustle has a side hustle. And those places they were so far apart as to who I was, and in those two places, that it took me a long time to reconcile them. And I was actually kind of resentful for the first couple of years I came back to the States, as an aside, because I was like, where's Soft Life Kelley? Like, this is 0 out of 10. Would not recommend this existence of full-time corporateness. So I totally understand that different,
I mean,
that
I think
line.
that's what's so fascinating about living abroad, um, is that you recognize in the theme of your show the things that you get to opt out of and the things that you get to
Yes.
opt into. And so I find with a lot of my guests on the podcast who have repatriated back to their home country, that becomes a very sobering realization that it's no longer this is all I know, this is all there could possibly be. It's like, no, I'm intentionally opting in now, regardless if it's, I won't say on your own free will, but like regardless if you really wanted to come back or not, you're intentionally opting back into a society, expectations, perhaps family dynamics that perhaps now you realize like, oh, I didn't have to. And that becomes the struggle is when you know better, you want to do better. And so returning back to something that no longer serves you becomes really hard. It's hard once you've tasted the rainbow. You're like, oh, I don't want to come back here.
This is not working for me. And that does dovetail really into my question for you, because this has been in so many ways a lifelong journey for you into opting out, right? And you talk about those two sides. So how have you, the theme of this podcast is opting out of struggle, right? And rejecting kind of cultural and historical myths about Black women and Black women's lives as a way to turn toward the good and to opt into something else. So how have you, or how did traveling and moving to Spain help you opt out?
I would say that we have to go all the way back at least until I was in law school. So I attended the University of Miami Law School. Um, Now like 10 years ago, which feels I feel kind of way about it. I'm like, what are we talking about? Um, and I have to go back to law school because it was in law school a lot of amazing and beautiful things happened for me, but also I really got to know myself. And that's when the discomfort of who I was and who I wanted to become and my trajectory that I was on really started like rubbing up against each other. So I was the first person in my entire family on both sides to go to professional school. Like I don't come from lawyers. I was going to school out of state, and I had landed in a situation where, I'm around, if you haven't been to Miami, a lot of wealth. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, okay. And I'm Southern, so we don't really talk about it. We're not flashy. And in Miami, you do talk
Yeah,
about it.
you
You
do.
are flashy. And I was going to school with people who, not everyone, but a lot of people who had parents who had law firms. They had a job. So that was really different for me. Also, though, I was in an experience where for undergrad, I went to PWI. And I mean, University of Miami is a private school, I guess it's PWI, but I had a robust and diverse group of Black in all the variations, Caribbean, African, American, of students and cohorts. And that really changed my perception as well of who I was. And so I have to say, bring all those things together because all of these things were kind of working together of I'm in this space where I'm like, wow, this is so vibrant and so amazing. I had like the best friends. Like a lot of people go to law school and it's like very traumatic and people steal their
Yeah.
notes and they steal their books and they're so mean to them. And I'm sure that happened actually in my class, maybe not my section because my section was very nice. I'm sure that cutthroat thing was happening, but I had like a very cozy experience with the community. Some my best friend, one of my best friends from like still to this day, I met in law school and I had that warmth. But on the other side, I had the burden, I would say, of carrying my family's expectations. My mom wanted me to be a lawyer. Yeah, I remember distinctly when I was 5 years old, I was with my grandmother. She was watching her stories, and I was acting out what I saw on television. And someone had just died. So I was like, I died. And she was like, oh my gosh, that was a beautiful, you're gonna be a wonderful actress. My mom's like, no, she's gonna be a lawyer. Like, I remember that. And so that was always in the back of my mind is like, I need to be a lawyer. I need to go do this. And so when I'm at the University of Miami and I'm pursuing it, I'm doing things that are expected of me. And I'm going really hard. Your first year, you're not really supposed to work or do anything, but I went out and got an externship and I was networking because I was like, I don't know anybody. I need to make, connections, I need to have a job. And had really great opportunities. I worked for Zumba one summer and also a federal magistrate judge. Like I was having these great opportunities that kept on leading me to I don't want to practice traditionally. I've done all these cool things, and I just didn't know how to really express that. And then I ended up actually, I became the first Black woman president of my law school. And that was, I'm not a political person. I realized after that, I was like, I don't like playing that game and all those things. So I had all these expectations and these prestigious things that are happening, but I as a person was evolving, and I was like, I don't like what's ahead of me. This is not really who I am. And a chance kind of email meeting or email I read about this incredible teacher who's an entrepreneur on the main campus. I went and tried to stalk her because she was like this fabulous, like she had an incubator on campus. I was like, oh, I just got to meet her. She knows all the answers to my life. And I ended up becoming a legal fellow for this incubator that then took me abroad after law school. So when I graduated from law school, I wasn't a lawyer. I didn't take the bar exam. Like I was on a trade mission to Namibia and South Africa because that's what I wanted to do. And I had to follow my heart, even though everyone thought I was nuts because I was I was law school president. So I had a lot of connections. I knew people. Like I could get a job if I took the bar exam. Um, and to go your own way in such a traditional uh, career field and with your expectations of your black mama and Caribbean parent and grandparents is really difficult. It's really really difficult. So I started to that was my first time of really opting out of other people's expectations. And let me tell you, it wasn't easy. And I think it like was traumatic because people's expectations and disappointments, it's not like a one-time thing. It's an
Yeah.
ongoing
Hmm.
situation. People thinking, basically continuously thinking like, you're so great but you've messed it
But
up. And that
mhm.
coming from friends and family. Friends being like, girl, when are you gonna stop with this foolishness? And that's hurtful because you're like, I don't feel like I'm playing around. I feel like my heart, my soul wants to do something else. And everyone's telling me I'm wrong. And so I think
Yeah.
that is really tricky because I think so many of us don't trust ourselves. And we learn that from our experiences because people tell us not to trust ourselves. And then societally, or socially rather, people reinforce that. They're like, you don't know what you're talking about. Whatever you're feeling is stupid. Dead that. And move
Those
on.
dreams.
But
Kill those dreams.
yeah,
Kill those dreams.
it was really that was my first experience of opting out. And I say that because it wasn't a pretty experience. Like, yeah, I went on business trade mission. That's cool, yes.
Mhm.
But it wasn't linear and it wasn't neat. Like I got a job after law school. I was in South Africa, Namibia. But then, that job didn't last very long because I had a death in my family that changed the whole dynamics of my family. I mean, the effects of it are still felt today. And I had to go back to Atlanta. And I had to then try to figure out what I wanted to do and how to stay true to myself when, you know, there wasn't a game plan, there wasn't a role model, and I wasn't being encouraged to do so. Everyone was like, what are you doing?
What are you doing?
And stop doing that.
Yeah.
you know? And honestly, as a black woman, people are just like, this is what's so funny because I think I also was suffering from burnout, which I did not know anything about because it wasn't talked about. um so none of my friends or family were like, I think you're like anxious and depressed, you might be burned out. They were just like, you're being weird. just just be a lawyer.
Stop it. Just go do something different. It really does make it makes a difference. I love what you said about one, the opt out not being neat or linear, because I think the other thing is the concept of the opt out is not something that you just do once and this inspiration and the music swells behind you and like everyone cheers and throws confetti, and especially when you're opting out of struggle, because you're usually in a space where struggle is every which direction, or you're seeing struggle in different places, or you know you're going to meet against people who have decided that struggle is just their right, like this is just life. Life is like not for dreams. Life is for practical get things done. Particularly if you're from folks from the diaspora who are like, there's a lot of pressure for folks to do certain kind of jobs and to be certain kind of careers, and it really is not neat and linear. It's also not something you do once. You know, we talk about that a lot, like it's a discipline, it's not a destination. It's like, well, one time I opted out and I went to Namibia, and now I'm living the opt out. And I think that is a, I just applaud you for bringing that level of honesty into the picture, that there are going to be people whose reaction to you opting out is like, stop the foolishness. Start do something different with your life. Are you okay? You know, people who are like in the struggle, weighed down, are going to look at you and be like, "But are you okay though? Do we need to talk about something?" And so I really applaud you for bringing that into the room, because I do think that people need to hear it and one can relate to that.
Yeah, I mean, what I have learned, and it took me a long time. So everyone, please don't be like me. Get it the first time. When you opt out of something, you need to, it's necessary for you to opt into something else to
Yes.
fill that void. Because I opted out of being a traditional lawyer. I didn't opt out of like a toxic relationship with work and how hard and how much I was working. I didn't opt out of my value as a person being tied to what I did, and the
Yeah.
fact that I wasn't a lawyer and I wasn't, a really fancy incubator consultant, and I wasn't jet setting at the time. I was just like, oh, I'm worth nothing, and who am I? Everyone is
Yeah.
right. Even though I had a feeling and a knowing that I needed to do something else, I didn't have anything within me to support that. I hadn't opted out of that toxic thinking and association. I didn't, I wasn't in therapy because I didn't think anything was wrong with me. I was like, of course, who you are as a person is directly tied to your productivity. I mean, hello, what's going on? I had no I had not opted out of the thinking, which might be even more important than necessarily the situation or the job, because I felt like I was floundering for a couple of years. Like I was just like, I produced a music festival. I was doing actually some legal work on the side. I was consulting with some startups in Atlanta. But I felt like I was spinning my wheels a lot. And I think it's because I I hadn't opted out of that mindset, and I hadn't opted into Team Christine. I
Yeah.
had opted into the idea of I want to be impressive to people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I need people to be like, you're cool and you're successful. But I haven't really opted into Team Christine, Team me. Like, I like you. You're amazing. You have something to say. You have a way of doing it, and it's valid, and that's great. I hadn't opted into that. And it wasn't until I hit kind of like a brick wall. I was exhausted. Um, I had always wanted to live abroad, and I was always trying to figure out how to go abroad. And it wasn't until 2016, 17, I actually figured that out. Although in 2014, I had walked the Camino de Santiago, which was crazy because I had found a job in Kuala Lumpur. It fell through. And I was like, what else is there to do except for walk 500 miles across Spain? Obviously, that's what you do.
Obviously, as one
Um,
does.
as one does. And so I had all these experiences, but I hadn't really bet on myself yet. I hadn't opted into myself. And I was at a point where I was exhausted in 2017. I decided I gotta go. I hope I'll feel better if I move to Spain. And I gave myself, like, I was like, I'm gonna go for a year or two and we'll see how it goes. And so I moved to Spain. And what was interesting is that moving to Spain, the wellness did not automatically come.
No.
That was not necessarily an opt in to Team Christine. It was an amazing opportunity for me to catch my breath and to really see myself, to really assess who I am, what I want, to be honest without the noise of all everyone that I know's opinions directly on me because we have a 6 hour time difference and I'm disconnected a little bit. But moving to Spain, to La Rioja wine region, that that wasn't an opt into
It
wellness.
didn't.
It wasn't an
Yeah.
opt into wellness until I decided to cultivate a life well lived for myself. And that's work, right?
Lots of work, and I love, and that kind of transitions us, we're going to talk next about, you can opt out of things, but if you can opt out, but there's going to be always a gap or a space, and if you don't fill it with the good and opting into good, then the bad or the unhealthy creeps back in. So let's transition, let's move now. I want to talk about next how we're going to get to how you opted in to this life of wellness. All right, so we are with Christine Jobe from Flourish in the Foreign, the podcast about helping women cultivate a life well lived via living abroad. And we talked about in the last episode your kind of journey to opting out, that it wasn't neat, it wasn't linear, and that even when you in some ways opted out, there were still struggles that you had because you hadn't fully, you said, opted into Team Christine. And so the setup here for you is, as you know, in the podcast, we talk about if we're rejecting cultural and historical myths and a legacy that tells us that we're meant to struggle and meant to be exhausted and meant to just be heavy and weighed down by our legacy, that if we reject that, we have to replace it with something. And so our true legacy, our true inheritance as Black women is one of joy, is one of abundance and community, and just a life of beauty. And so how did opting into Team Christine help you access those qualities in your life? And let's first just talk briefly about you doing that professionally for this episode. And then we always close with the personal. So let me know, how did opting into Team Christine and betting on yourself have you access joy and community and abundance and beauty in your professional life?
So professionally, it's changed everything because it's changed how I perceive myself. Before I, I was a gifted and talented student. I did all the AP classes. I was told I'm very analytical and law school was great for me and all those other things. When you opt into to yourself, it requires you to get to know yourself and to give the voices and the interest a little like encouragement. And so opting into myself has totally changed my profession in a way. I'm still a business strategist, but now I'm an award-winning podcaster too. So it's allowed me to really explore the things that I love and that I'm interested in a way that's truly in alignment with myself. Meaning, for business strategy, I work with people who are purpose driven, and that's not lip service. I need people to really care about what they're doing. I'm a good business strategist and I could probably help everybody, but no, my passion is helping Black women and women of color who are purpose driven and who are impact driven, who are trying and succeeding in creating differences in the world. That's important to know that about myself. And that has changed the game for me, truly. Um, but also professionally, it has I'm laughing just because, I thought of myself as a creative, like at all. I am the type of person that, if I'm drawing something, it's going to be a sun in the corner of the paper with like the little
Yeah.
sticks of
Yeah.
rays and then like a little like early cloud and a tree. And it's been like that since I was 5. You're not getting really much else from me. But by opting into myself, I also opted into a different definition of creativity
Yes.
that actually allowed space for me to play and for me to be known and for me to accept myself as a creative. And I think that has been so magical. And honestly, that was part of me opting into this life abroad that gave me the time, the resources, and the inspiration to do that. But again, it was a cultivation of that, of betting on myself, of saying, I want to create something that doesn't exist. And instead of being like, this is what I used to do all the time, I'm like, hey guys, this is a really cool idea. Would you like to do this so I could listen to it? Please. Anyone. Like basically the direct
Hmm.
opposite of people who are like, oh, I don't want anyone to steal my idea. I actually
Gave
pushed
them
this
away.
idea for Flourish on the Floor for like 2, 3 years. I was like, someone should do this. Someone should do this. And it wasn't until I reframed my concept of myself. I'm a creative. I can write things. I can take something out of my brain and put it on paper. I'm a creative. I can do things. I can at least try. And the process of coming up with and producing and executing my podcast has honestly been the most healing thing about my experience of being abroad. I always tell people, moving abroad is not going to heal you from anything.
No.
So don't do that. Don't think like, I'm going to move to Bali, even though Bali is amazing.
Yeah.
It's not going to solve your problems. And the people of Bali are not going to solve your
No.
problems. You are going to heal yourself in this experience. And that's what it did. It gave me the inspiration, it gave me the time, and creating and meeting all the women that I have met and to affirm themselves and affirm myself by giving them a platform for their stories has been the most transformational experience of my professional life, definitely my personal life as well, but professional life, because it has it has allowed me to confidently bet on myself, my ideas, on Black women. I'm like, oh no, yeah, I always bet on Black, of course, because
Yeah.
like we're amazing and everything is fantastic. So for me, opting into Team Me is also opting into another possibility of how I could be and express professionally. How could I serve? And how I define success. That's also the thing. And I'm not looking for the same eyes that I think I was looking for to be in the audience to affirm me. I'm like, I
Yes.
don't care what y'all doing. I mean, I hope you're well, but I don't care. I don't
Yeah.
care. So then it really starts transforming that whole professional experience about who do I want to connect with and why. And also it really did change my own concept of value. Like I think I still am in the process of like I need to stop being so busy because I haven't met a project that I don't like. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I live in Spain. Take a siesta. Now I do take
Yes.
naps. I do. But like your girl is busy all the time. But I like it. I'm doing all the things that I love to do. But also it's because I think being in this new concept of creativity and professionalism and professional world, I bet on myself. I ask a lot. I'm like, hey, I don't know what I'm doing, but do you think this is a cool idea? Can you talk to me? And I'm a lot bolder, I think,
Yeah.
because I don't have a concept of like, oh, you can't do this. Like I didn't know anything about podcasting. I just asked people. I was like, hey, support me.
Yeah.
I don't. Oh, you run the head of marketing at so and so podcasting service. Okay, what can we talk on Zoom? Like what? What the so I think that's also what is amazing. It's created a space for me to play. It's created space for me to ask boldly. I don't even know if it's really boldly. I just don't know any better. I just feel like I don't know. Yes,
But there's nothing
please.
wrong with that. There's like literally, and I think the other piece that is the thread running through this is is joy. Like you are talking about healing, but the other thing that this podcast has brought joy into your life. And I do believe that people who are more joyful are more confident. They see they see that kind of the benefits around them. They see the world from a different perspective, and that makes them bolder. That just makes you to be like, well, the world, it's not even boldness. It's like the world is good. I can continue to bring more goodness. Like I've already, the affirmation for the year for me is like there's more and still more. And I think that pathway to joy really does affirm that like you can get the things that you're looking for. You can have a kind of abundant life. It's also brought in community. Like you talk about, you've met these Black women. Now you're like, I bet I'm Black because I have the evidence, right, in the community that I have built starting from law school going into this life that has helped you fully kind of replace struggle, fully kind of replace the kind of burnout and negativity that may have once have been in your life or the trajectory of your life, that now you have this more richness. So I just wanted to call that out too, that seems to be, and have you just quickly respond to that before we talk about the personal, like where joy is in this process.
Definitely. Joy is in the center of everything that I do professionally, which as I'm saying it, I'm like, is that true? And it's like, yeah, it really is. Because yeah, I'm busy. And sometimes I'm like, what do you mean? Like responding to emails and like, you can't follow instructions. There's always something. There's always something. Um, but no, I sit down and listen to my podcast and I'm like, dang, this thing is good.
It's good. Yeah, I got
And
it.
then
I
I'm like,
co-sign that.
oh wow. And I get an email about someone moving to Japan because they listen to my podcast. And I first get stricken. I'm like, but wait, you did your research, right? And they're like, yes, I did. I'm like, okay, don't just listen to the podcast, move to
There'll
Japan.
be a one
And then
star that'll be like, Christine said to go abroad to be well. Now I'm here in Japan stranded. 0 stars. I'm teasing.
like I just that that is joy for me. People seeing themselves. Or I had a guest, oh my gosh, Jessie, she's a fine artist in Paris. She just dropped me a note a couple weeks ago and was like, I just re-listened to our episode and I just love it. Because
Yeah.
also the thing is that there are so many phenomenal women, regardless if you're living abroad or not, that don't think that they're incredible,
Phenomenal.
that
Yeah,
don't think
it's
their
true.
stories are worth telling. And so for me, it is an incredible privilege that people trust me with their stories and that they can see the beauty in themselves and their stories for themselves. They can say, oh wait, I've been doing the thing. And then other people who are affirmed by them being themselves and see themselves, it's an echo chamber of joy. I talk about wellness. I love wellness. I love everything well. I totally subscribe to wellness and all of its dimensions and areas for Black women. I totally subscribe to soft life. I totally subscribe to living a life well lived on your own terms. So these are all the things that I talk about and I promote in my professional life and in business strategy. I encourage all of my clients to build a business based upon wellness principles so that it
Yes.
can be sustainable, so that it can be long, serving, and so that it can be infused with joy because these women are joyful in the impact and the service that they're providing. And so my whole professional life is centered on joy and the things that I like to do. There is a lot of things that sometimes I'm like, come on, let's go. What's this?
Let's go. Yes.
But at the center of everything that I do is awesome.
Joy.
Like it's incredible, actually.
It sounds good from this vantage point. I mean, I see no real spots for major complaints, and I agree. Like I love that you said at the center of this is an echo chamber of joy. Like you've created a place that joy is reinforced professionally. It's not just like, oh, I'm joyful. It's like, no, I've created a life professionally where joy is at the center and it just reinforces itself. It's like joy reinforces joy. And you meet these amazing people and the joy touches them and they're like, yeah, I want to re-listen to this episode. I was really smart on this episode. I'm incredible. And then you're seeing, you get joy from that. So that makes a ton of sense to me and is honestly just beautiful. And I think so many people really dream of having a professional life the way that you're having it. And so that takes us to the last piece that we always ask people, which is how they're opting in their personal life, how they're centering joy or abundance or community in their personal. So next episode, let's pick up there. Okay, we are back with our final segment and conversation, part 3 of our conversation with Christine Jobe from the podcast Flourish in the Foreign. And as promised, our last kind of pillar of conversation I want to have with you is how you opt into joy in your personal life. This seems to be the one area that I feel like Black women have it all the way together. Most Black women I meet have it all the way together with their professional life, or they at least know the trajectory, particularly if you're a high achiever, if you're creative, whatever it is. Black women love to talk about success and professionalism and what they're doing and what's next. But an area that continues to be of struggle for a lot of Black women is in their personal life, is in their family dynamics and in their community and in relationships and in how they balance turning off work. That's the number one thing, right? That work is great and it's work, 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 and more work. And so I'd love to hear from you. You talk about how you center joy in the professional realm. Well, what do you do that's not related to work in your personal life? How do you continue that centering of joy in your life and opting into joy?
I would have to say that this has been a very, hmm, it's been a very intentional cultivation. And it has required me to be really honest about not only my personal life, but like my coping mechanisms. Because, like a lot of Black women, I'll just work, especially because I like to do what I do.
Oh,
So I'm
yeah.
like, I won't even deal with it. And I find, especially being abroad, that I was falling into a pattern. I won't say all of my time abroad, but I would say the last maybe 2 years being abroad, I was falling into a pattern of isolation, really.
Yes.
Because, the pandemic, everybody, I mean, I do everything online on my laptop.
Yep.
Everything is really here. I work from home. I'm an introvert. So, like, I was really like hardcore isolating. I had a romantic relationship here in Spain. It went worse than bad. So I was having to figure out how to heal and to reframe my life. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what is it that I want? And I think for a time, going into your cave is good, but then it becomes an issue. And so I had to really show up for myself. And that was hard because also, in the past 2 years, I moved from Barcelona to Valencia, Spain. And even though I studied abroad here 5 million years ago, I didn't know anybody like that here. So I had to really put myself out there, but I needed to do so intentionally because, again, I'm an introvert. I'm not going to every little thing to make some friends. Oh, I'll stay at home and work. So what I found myself doing and how I really opted into it was taking some of the principles from work and creating the things I wish existed into community. So I created, a podcasting group here in Valencia. It's thriving. It's been so interesting the amount of podcasters that live here and come through here. I created a women's entrepreneurship group here in Valencia that's just become such a cozy little sisterhood of people that get it. People get like,
Yes.
this sucks, and how can we help each other and how can we be in community with each other. So I've had to, and I say had to because there was nothing like that that I wanted to go to. And I'm very particular again because I'm an introvert. So I'm not just going to anything that's on meetup.com. I'm not doing it.
Right.
So I, I had to post in groups and was like, I'm going to assert myself and create it. And that's scary and uncomfortable. And you don't know what your return on investment is going to be. Like but that's the whole thing about investing in your personal life. Like you have
Yeah.
to go out there and create and to seek out the types of relationships that you wanted to create. Now I'm in a position where, again, it's heartwarming, but I have my podcasting meetup and everyone's like, I'm so grateful that you created this. It's so amazing. Da, da, da. I have my women's entrepreneurship group. They're like, this is incredible and everything like that. But I had to create something that I wanted to experience because I have particular tastes in how I want to spend my time and the type of people I want to be in community with. So I did have to do that. I had to opt into trying. And I think
Yeah.
sometimes that's hard because, especially in the States, you have your friends that you went to, middle school,
Yeah.
high school, college, law school, and that's it. And then everyone's like, it's hard to make friends as an adult. Well, try it as an adult and you live abroad and you speak a different language, like
Thank
a
you.
different like mother tongue.
Very hard.
And sometimes, your common language is someone else's like second or third language. Like,
Yes.
come on. So there is a cultivation, and I always say cultivation because I know that the things that we desire the most don't just befall us. We do need
Takes
to
work.
opt out of things like
Mm-hmm.
weed the area, then we need to
Mm-hmm.
till the soil, then we need to drop the seeds of the fruits that we'd like to feast on. And that requires, it's the same thing in professional life, in the personal life.
Takes
I
work.
will say also, though, while you're cultivating the fruits that you like to feast on, you also need to put up a fence and you need
Yes.
to put up a scarecrow because there are boundaries and there are people that are just not gonna be able to be in your life um in this next chapter of your life. And that's what I've learned. And it's heartbreaking because some of these people you feel, of course you would be here.
Yeah.
That's part of your role and title. And it's not. It's not. And you have to come to grips with that. And I think that's also something that living abroad does. It sifts a lot of
Yes.
people who are really your friends.
Yes.
Okay.
It sure
Like
does.
you will sift.
Yeah.
One of my best friends that I met in law school, I was going through it last year around this time. She was supposed to go to Mexico for her birthday. She flew to rainy Valencia. It was rainy and cold. And like that's a friend.
That's a friend.
I didn't ask her to do it, but that's a friend, right? There's not everyone is going to be able to not even just be happy for you. Not everyone's going to be able to help you cultivate this personal
Yeah.
life.
Which
Not
takes
everyone is
work
dropping. Exactly. Not
that you're talking
everyone
about.
wants Exactly. Not everyone wants to pull the weeds. Not everyone
Right.
wants to point out like, "Oh, you missed this part. Make sure do this." Not everyone is dropping seeds of affirmation, of prosperity, of abundance for you.
Right.
Not
Right.
everyone is. A lot of people are waiting to feast off of you.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I think that's what's so important to recognize. And you know, that kind of thing, it's hard to reconcile because that's the type of thing that makes you want to isolate. But I've had to stand in my truth, I guess, and say, I'm going to be open and available. I'm going to be soft hearted and vulnerable for the interactions and the people and the experiences I want to have. For me to do that, though, means that I cannot be available to the people who have already shown themselves incapable of this type of space, this type of energy.
Yes.
Because as a person, I can't be hard-hearted and I can't be isolated from the world. I can't. I don't want to. That's not how I thrive. So
Yep.
I've had to say, if I'm going to be, my sensitive Capricorn self, because I am like, I'm a little bit, I'm sensitive, down deep, down deep. I am a softie. You know, people be like, soft where? I'm like, deep
It's
in the
there. It's
core
there.
of
There's
the earth. That's
a mustard grain size seed of softness. It's there though. It's there.
it's there. To be even more. I want to be open. I want to be have my arms outstretched. I do. I want to come from that kind of energy. I don't want to have to be on guard or suspicious or be like, "Oh, here we go." And I don't. But I have to recognize that that's on me to say, "No. You can tell me what you want to tell me from all the way over there." That's how we're going to do
From a
this.
distance. You can love from a distance. That's what I say. Yeah.
You have to, and it requires you to, maybe not share as much
Hmm.
and keep people up to date and all those types of things. But honestly, that's how I have opted into community. That's how I've been able to be open to community and open to a vibrant, and hopefully get even more vibrant personal life. Is I had to recognize that that's not going to befall me. Like, there's not enough
Hmm.
like Netflix shows of like funny rom-coms or
Right.
friend shows that are going to like happen for me.
Yes.
And I can't, and I'm not the type of person that likes, things off the rack anyway, basically. I like custom everything. I like bespoke to me. And that
Christine's
requires
bougie.
me.
She bringing that bougie in all her. I'm okay with that. I'm with you. Bring that bougie in all areas of your life. That's right.
And I had to, like, I have certain fabrics that I prefer, and I have certain measurements, and I had to bring that to the cultivation of my personal life.
Yes.
Like, it's one thing to be like, well, I don't hang out with so and so. I don't even. It's not that. It's I'm gonna go out and I'm going to put out the energy that I want to receive. The energy that I require and desire. I'm not gonna wait for it because you can't Amazon Prime it. Like, okay,
No,
like you can't.
you really
And I
can't.
think the best relationships that I have are people that I would have never met if had I waited on somebody, waited on them to post something like, you're cool.
Right.
No, I'm also
Yeah.
impatient. I'm also very impatient. I'm like, let's go. I think this should exist. I'm gonna do it. Let's make it happen. And that has been honestly such a blessing because I have a vibrant community here in Valencia, even more so than maybe even
In Barcelona.
Barcelona. But Barcelona is like a transient kind of city. So
Yeah, I can tell. There's like a definite difference. And it's about living in the affirmative. Like, I think, again, joy takes work, but it's not necessarily bad work. I mean, I think Black women are not scared. One thing I know about Black women is we're not scared of work. It's just about where we put our energy and our cynicism around what the benefits might be of the work we might be doing. But it's about living in the affirmative. It's about going out there and cultivating this life of joy, of opting into joy is an active process. And it's not just like, okay, I'm trying to be a good person now. Magically, people will drop from the sky. But what I will say is, like, there's a little bit of like synchronicity, or I don't know what the other word is. That's a fancy word for like alignment or sprinkles of like just magic in some ways, I guess is the best way to say it, where you do actually, while you're working on things, people do pop up and you're like, oh, yes, I want you in my life. Yes, I'm picking you for the community because you are showing up in a way that people are responding or seeing or gravitating, but you still have to live in the affirmative of doing the work, and you still have to let go. I think the most important piece of what you said is you cannot have the good until you let go of the what doesn't work, the unhealed, the distractions. I'm not even gonna say bad, but it's you cannot have the good without letting go of the unhealed pieces of yourself, the distractions, the negativity. It just doesn't exist. There's no one in the world who's going to tell you, I've balanced both. I have the ratchet and the rich. I have the, there's just never, you're going to find people who can really do that well. And I do think that that's something that I really love that you're saying.
absolutely. I just feel like, I tell people all the time, moving abroad isn't going to solve your issues because everywhere you go, you bring yourself. And that
Yes.
goes for regardless if you're abroad or not. Every chapter of your life, you bring yourself. So if you are not liking the results, we have to look at ourselves. And that sucks because it's like, I want it to be everyone else. Everyone
Right.
else sucks, not me.
Right.
Like,
Right.
I'm
Right?
great. But,
Absolutely.
but you have to be honest with yourself, and you can't take mindsets that don't serve you, especially abroad. I always tell people, you will break your own heart
Mm,
manifesting the exact same cycles you were trying to escape in the US, the UK, wherever, in a foreign land.
yes.
And he just has a foreign accent, and that's it, especially because it's
Yes.
always
And
about
it's even
dating.
more
People are always,
heartbreaking. It's going to be more
that's the
heartbreaking because
thing.
you have this expectation that doesn't not only not get met, but it's even lower. And you end up in so many ways, more hurt if you bring that attitude with you.
Of course. I mean, look, I'll say briefly, dating, when we're talking about personal life, dating is dating all around the world. I have 2 episodes on the podcast, Dating Abroad Part 1, Dating Abroad Part 2, if y'all are interested in it. But I will say that it's still a cultivation.
Yeah.
You have to understand how much of your expectations and requirements are perhaps socially kind of infused into you,
Yes.
and how much of that is actually requirements for someone to be a partner for you, not for on Instagram, not
Yes.
so that's for your friends or whatever, but like what is actually important to you. Because the thing about living abroad is that it will show you who you are very quickly and in the most undesirable lighting possible. Like you will not be able to be like, is that me? It's you, girl.
It's you. It's all me. Go to the mirror. Could not
So
agree at all anymore. Could not agree anymore with you.
it, it's an amazing experience that way, but just know that it's a cultivation. And I know that a lot of the women listening are going to be tired of working because they're like, more work. No, I don't want to hear that. I want to get some, coconut. I want to be on a hammock, whatever. Well, that's vacationing. And living abroad is different from vacationing. So I got to tell you that. Okay. So if you're looking for a
Very
vacation,
different.
girl, go on a vacation.
Go on.
But if you're
Yes.
looking to live abroad, it is going to be a cultivation, but it is such an amazing return on your investment because if you do so, if you move abroad with intention, then you will see all of the fruit of your labor. And it's not going to feel like labor because it is
No.
going to feel like you are doing the things that you want to do and you're getting the results or the communities or the experiences that you actually want to be having. But like you said, Kelley, you do have to make space for it. You can't bring everything in your entire apartment, house, luggage over abroad and be like, oh, I'm gonna make it work with this. Like, no, you gotta let
No,
stuff
you're not.
go.
No, you're not.
And
Yeah.
honestly, it's gonna be the stuff that you want to let go. It's gonna be some of the stuff that you don't want to let go too.
Mhm.
Identity or whatever. It's gonna be some stuff that you're actually like, I can't let this go. And you're gonna have to really enter into the richness and the sweetness of this next chapter of your life.
Agreed. Can't say it any better. Christine Jobe, thank you for being on the podcast. Thank you for this great conversation that I know so many people are going to be inspired by and also understand better what it takes to have this, as you said, echo chamber of joy in your life by opting out of struggle. So thank you for being here. We appreciate you. Check out Flourish in the
Thank
Foreign.
you for having me. I love this. This is so much fun. Thank you so much.